Wait a minute. Oh, hello. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with our war game challenge. So this project is for a beginning Python programming class. The files that you will need to complete this project are in the description, or you would, if you're in my class, you would have downloaded them from the Canvas page. So let's go ahead and get started with the first segment of working through this code along tutorial. The project is broken down into 5 different steps, and I'm going to do each of the 5 different steps in a separate short video. The file that you will be working in, you'll have 2 files open. One will be the actual final project file, which in this case I'm going to be using Jupyter Lab to do my coding in. And so the War Challenge basic file that you downloaded has the descriptions of each of the steps, along with comments in it that you can use as pseudocode to help develop the code. And the process that we're going to go through to develop this is we're going to actually be writing our code in a sandbox, an empty lab. And then as we get the code working properly, then we'll copy it back into our main project. And this is in general a good process to follow when you're coding a project, especially one where you're defining many different functions, and the functions may or may not work on their own inside of the main code. You want to develop those in a sandbox so you can test them and make sure that they are actually doing what you want them to do. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started in our project. So let's take a look at our War Challenge project file. So as you can see, there's 5 steps, and each step has a list of instructions on what to do. So what I want to do to get started is let's take all of the code from step 1, which is this first section here, and let's copy that over into our sandbox into an empty cell. Okay, so the instructions tell you exactly what you need to know. Everything you need to create this function is described inside of this comment at the top. And you'll notice also I've got the comments down below. That's where you're going to actually write the code to do those tasks. So the first thing we're doing is creating a function called createCards. And the specifications say the function will take no arguments. So we have enough here to write our first line of code, right? We can go ahead and define our function. So under the line that says define function here, let's go ahead and define our function using the keyword def. The name of our function is createCards. And there's no arguments, but we do need the parentheses. So you're always including parentheses when you define a function. And you always have a colon at the end of that line to define the function. Now all of the code that will be part of our function will be indented at least one level beneath define. And get rid of that extra space. So you can see that I've already got a working doc string for you. And I've initialized some collections that we're going to use to build our deck of cards. We have a values collection, which is a list of strings. And we have a suits collection, which is a list of symbols representing the suits in a 52 card deck. And we've initialized an empty list called deck and an empty dictionary called rank. And we'll get to the rank in just a moment. Let's start by making our deck. So the first pass, we're going to use a nested loop to create our 52 card deck like this. For value in values, colon. So that will loop through that list of values, and it will save each one of those strings to the iterator variable value each time. And then we're going to have an inner loop for suit in suits. And that will loop through the suits collection. Now let's go ahead and append each card to our deck. So deck.append. And each card is going to be represented by a string. And we're going to use the iterator variables value and suit like this. We're going to create concatenate a string by taking value plus the literal string space of space. Make sure you have your spaces inside of the quotes. And this will only work if you have spaces around the of, because we're going to use the split method in a little bit. So make sure you have spaces around of. And then we're going to add suit. So value and then of suit. That is going to be the string that will be appended to our deck. Okay, so let's just skip the rank for a second and let's go down and return deck from this function. So we're going to use the keyword return and deck. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that code. Make sure we get no errors. Okay, so the function create cards is now loaded in memory. And let's call it and save the return value in a variable called deck. So deck equals create cards, and then let's print deck. Okay, so we've got a list of cards, and you can see that it's printed out the strings, 2 of spades, 2 of hearts, so on and so forth. Let's just double check that this worked good. Let's also print the length of the deck. So I'm just going to amend my print statement to print the length of the deck. And there you see we have 52 cards. So we've got a good deck of cards created. It's saved in our list called deck. Okay. Now I want to go back up, and instead of doing a double loop, let's recreate our deck using a list comprehension with a nested loop inside of it. And here's how we're going to do that. We're going to define deck to be equal to square brackets, and we're going to write our comprehension statement inside of the square brackets. And we're going to start with the string that we want to add to our list. So I'm just going to copy the string concatenation from above when we appended it, paste that here. And now inside of my comprehension, I'm going to create my nested loop. So for value in values, for suit in suits. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this nested loop. So now all we have is our list comprehension. Let's run that code to reload our function, and let's define deck equal to create cards. I shouldn't have deleted it from before. And then let's print deck, and then let's also print the length of deck and run that. Okay, so you see that our list comprehension worked. We've created our deck of 52 cards now with just one line. It's very easy to read. It's not too complicated. Just a simple 2-layer loop inside of there that created our deck of 52 cards. Okay, so that looks good. Let's go ahead now and create the ranks. And if you in the description it says that rank will be a dictionary consisting of each card in the deck along with the relative ranking, and we're going to call that rank. And the way we're going to build this dictionary is we're going to use a loop. Let's just go ahead and loop through all of the cards in the deck. So let's create a loop here for card in deck. And then to add an item to a dictionary, you simply type in the name of the dictionary, which is rank, and then you pass the name of each key inside of square brackets. Since we're looping through each of the cards in the deck, let's have all the keys be equal to the strings that are in the deck. In other words, the names of the cards. So our index or the key will be card inside of square brackets. And then we're going to set this equal to a value, an integer, representing the relative value of each card in the deck. So if you look up at our values collection, you can see that we have the values of our cards in the game of war entered in the order of how they would be played in the game. So for example, the ace is the highest value. It's at the end of the list. The 2 is the lowest value. It's at the beginning. So as you go through the list, each card beats all of the prior cards. So if we just know the index of each one of those values, we can create a value that can be used in the game to evaluate which card beats which. And here's how we're going to do that. We're going to use the split method to extract from each card what the very first part of that string is, in other words, the value. And then we're going to look up the index of that value inside of our list of values. So here's how we're going to do that. So the index is going to be returned by values.index. And then now we need to extract the actual value from each card. So we're going to use the split method, card.split, and we're splitting on space. But then, so that card.split around the space will create a list of each of the characters. So actually, for each card, this card.split method will create a list consisting of the value, the word of, and then the suit. And so we're only interested in the value, which will be the very first element of that list. So we're going to index this at index 0 and end parenthesis. So that is going to extract out the index from the values list based on just the first part of the name of each card. Let's go ahead. I'm just going to demonstrate this for you down below. Watch this. I'm going to create a string. I'm going to copy one of these strings from our printed out dictionary of DEC here into a code cell, and then I'm going to type in dot split and a space, and watch what comes back. So you can see that the split method actually broke up that string into 3 elements: the to, the of, and the spade. So now if I index that, since it's a list, we can use indexing, index 0, you'll see I should just get the to as a string, right? Now, if I actually look up the value, I can't do that because values is inside of my dictionary. But if values was a global variable, I could use that string to look up the index of the string to in the values dictionary, which is what this code right here does, values.index. You just pass to it, in this case, the string 2. It would look in the values dictionary and say, well, 2 is at index 0, and it would return a 0. Okay, so this should now create our dictionary that has the card strings and their values, which is the index from the values list. Let's go ahead and return rank. And now let's amend our statement here to say DEC, comma, rank equals create cards. And instead of printing the DEC, let's print out rank. Let's see here, DEC, rank, create. Oh, I have to rerun this code right here and then run that. Okay, so that seemed to work. You can see that's a dictionary, curly braces on the outside, and each key is a card, so 2 of spades, and then colon, and then it has the rank value of each card. So you can see that, for example, the king, all the kings have a value of 11, and the 5s have a value of 3. So a king would beat a 5 because 11 is greater than 3. That's how we're going to use that data. Okay, now that we have completed our first function, let's go ahead and copy the code back into our project file so that we'll have that for next time. So I'm just going to copy just the part that we changed, which is from the function definition down to the return. And I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to overwrite here in step 1. Make sure you're only overwriting the actual code that you need to overwrite in step 1. Okay, and we're all set. Okay, so that does it for the first video. That is step number 1. We have successfully created our create cards function. Okay, now that we have completed our first function, let's go ahead and copy the code back into our project file so that we'll have that for next time. So I'm just going to copy just the part that we changed, which is from the function definition down to the return. And I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to overwrite here in step 1. Make sure you're only overwriting the actual code that you need to overwrite in step 1. Okay, and we're all set.